Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu. Kenya yangu naipenda, nachukia ufisadi waharibu nchi yetu, tuangamize ufisadi. Kenya yangu naupinga ufisadi, bongo mbali, rushwa mbali, tuangamize ufisadi. Ndugu yangu wananchi, tudumishe maadili, tufanyapo kazi zetu, tuangamize ufisadi. Tuna nia na sababu na uwezo nazo mbinu, tuungane sisi sote, tuangamize ufisadi. Tuna nia na sababu na uwezo nazo mbinu, tuungane sisi sote, tuangamize ufisadi.
We remain upstanding for a word of prayer. Director John Lokoloi, Director Investigations, EACC, kindly come and pray for us.
Let's bow for a word of prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our God and Father, we come before you this morning with thanksgiving for this new day that you've given unto us. As we gather today to commemorate the Africa Anti-Corruption Day, we pray that you will guide us, you will bless us, you will speak to us through the various speakers, and you will enable us to do our part in this war against corruption and to promote ethics and integrity. This is our prayer in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you. We may have our seats. The alternate chairperson of the Kenya Leadership and Integrity Forum, who is also the chairperson of EACC, Dr. David Oginda, commissioners of EACC, the Secretary Chief Executive Officer of EACC, Mr. Abdi Mahmoud, the President of the Law Society of Kenya, Mr. Charles Kanjama, the DIG and Administration Police Service, Mr. Gilbert Masengeli, heads of institutions, Chief Executive Officers present, the Executive Director, National Construction Authority, Director General Kura, Chief Executive Officer, Media Council of Kenya, Chief Executive Officer, Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority, the Association of Professional Societies in East Africa, development partners, representatives of the various sectors of CLIF, the Media Council, the faith sector, members of the executive, members of the various professional bodies, a good morning. Mine is to welcome you to this commemoration of the African Anti-Corruption Day, which is ideally commemorated on the 11th of July every year. July falling over the weekend, it was decided that the commemoration will be done today, the 13th of July. This is the 10th edition for the commemoration of the African Anti-Corruption Day. The theme for this year is scaling up the promotion of integrity and anti-corruption actions across Africa. The theme recognizes that there has been significant progress made in the fight against corruption, because upon member states to move beyond awareness and commitments to accelerated, coordinated, and measurable actions. And in line with the theme for the 2026 commemoration, that seeks to catalyze collective action that drives impact, it is therefore expected during our today's commemoration that our discussions will dwell on how to promote the theme for this year, which is scaling up promotion of integrity and anti-corruption actions across Africa. The way CLIP is configured, we are configured in sectors, and therefore it is expected that in the various sectors we will initiate programs which will promote promotion of the theme. To start us off, we will receive remarks from various sectors of CLIF. And the very first to take the podium will be a representative of the youth. I invite Actera, accountability champion, development to make remarks. Welcome, Madam Linda.
Ladies and gentlemen, friends of integrity, allow me to ride on not so established protocol, but I would assume I would follow with excellencies those who are present, honorable guests, ladies and gentlemen, and overly friends of integrity. Good morning. I know I get to be the sacrificial lamb of going fast since it's an early morning. And being a young person, I understand energy is expected. But again, the topic of anti-corruption, associating it with energy, sometimes you can be coming off as complacent person of corruption. But I'll try to balance both. So my name is Linda Kitela, as introduced. I'm a youth researcher in the thematic areas of youth political participation. I have done studies in 14 African countries with restless development. Within the country, I have had the privilege of serving as a UN representative to the UN General Assembly, that is 79th session and the 80th session. I've also had the utmost privilege of serving as a president of Pan-African. Hope that has established the credibility for you to develop some trust of me speaking to you today. Seek you to maybe ask your neighbor, did you walk in with integrity? All right, the mood is there now, so I can get started, right? Okay, so my invitation here today is at the backdrop of the conversation we had last, if not Park University. And I remember the last conversation we had at it was politics of language, not necessarily conflict of interest. Today, I'm privileged to say yet another word is building up on whether term kill or scale. The idea of scaling, according to the governance that we have in this country, we cannot upon which maybe we can talk about. It has yet to be established on whether or not we're going to allocate resources, power, and execution to each and every institution so that we can get the solution toward and promoting accountable behavior. I know EACC sits at the nexus of this country. Friends, I invite you to with me and convince the powers that be to establish not just resources within the Ethical Anti-Corruption Commission, because as research has always established, the budget allocated to the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is equal to the amount of cases they get to prosecute, and that way amount of public resources that we get to save. But again, apart from allocating resources and the mandate or the power, there's also the personal conviction that we have held as citizens for a very long time, that as much as we're integrity seeking and accountability expecting, we've made more than one conscious decision of putting men and women with questionable backgrounds, including criminal charges. And I'm not necessarily attacking IEBC for clearing members or guests of ESCC as public servants, but that responsibility lies upon us as citizens to make sure that we make conscious decisions of accounting or selecting men and women with integrity to serve us. But because I'm a researcher and I've preached this gospel before, what does it take in the scientific level? I am convinced that if we take a scientific pathway of considering the brain development or the neurological development of finding out whether we do have a brain cell considerable for corruption. I say this at the backdrop that scenarios like food relief and medical supply units being the first, considerable, the most public service and goods on to corruption. When scenarios like that, human needs or human rights are the first to be, broken or at the risk of anti-corruption itself, it not necessarily makes us question our moral compass or moral compass of men and women who are serving us. It also makes us question the sanity, not just of ourselves when we elect these people, but the sanity of the men and women that we entrust protecting the rights of the most vulnerable among us. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I also beseech you, as you take a lot of hope in young people, to consider that evidence is saying otherwise. When I published a study that 6 out of young people are willing to participate in corruption when no one is watching, it kind of questions the future that we're placing on young people. This is also not necessarily something that happens in a vacuum, but it happens on how corruption is executed among us by our senior members of the community. Of times when that bribe is transferred from one car to another car, it's always a young person who's entrusted with that transfer. When that body is being deposited to somewhere else, it's always a young person. So to encounter an evidence about 6 out of 10 is not necessarily surprising, because we have considerably created a link between one generation to another where corruption can be transferred. So what would it take for us to promote accountable and ethical behavior among ourselves is to break those cycles where we don't necessarily continue transferring or corrupt or injustices by including young people when we consider to those acts. So, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to, stand here and give some happy news about, young people, considering all the efforts that you've seen across the continent, whether it's NSAS in Nigeria or the Arab Spring, as we encountered in the MENA region, or also just the Gen Z protests. The question about youth-led or youth-driven accountability still lies with the generation that you have, or your generation as seniors in leadership. For us to be able to drive accountability, we have to rely on the direction that you're willing to show us. We have to rely on the systems you're putting in place. And as much as those systems are fragmented as they are right now, we do not have a backbone or backdrop to start even seeking accountability. So the moment we consider consolidating efforts and resources within systems that we entrust more, and following that up with our own actions, then we can scale integrity. Then we can accelerate integrity with young people and for young people and their future generations. Ladies and gentlemen, that is my remarks for today. My name is Linda Kitela. It's been a pleasure.
Another round of applause for Linda. She has ejected a lot of energy. That determines how things will run. Our next set of remarks will be done on behalf of all professional bodies, and this will be done by none other than the President of the Law Society of Kenya, President Charles Kanjama. Welcome.
Thank you very much to the chair and the board members of Ethics Anti-Corruption Commission and the Secretariat, to the other leaders of various institutions present. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm really delighted that you are commemorating Africa Anti-Corruption Day here this morning, and I'm also pleased that I was invited to make some remarks on behalf of professional bodies, and I'll do so by making reference to what the Law Society of Kenya is doing and what we hope to achieve with other professional bodies. 38 years ago, a gentleman called Robert Klitgard wrote a book called Combating Corruption that has become some kind of Bible in the anti-corruption field. And what is most significant about his writing is he proposed a formula for corruption and fighting corruption. That formula is discussed in academic institutions, it's revised, it's critiqued, but it has stood the test of time. And Klitgard said that corruption is equals to monopoly plus discretion minus accountability. It's going to be based on the Klitgard formula. Monopoly is about institutions. How are our institutions? How do they operate? Discretion is about systems. How have we implemented and deployed our systems? What capacity building have we done? And accountability is about the individuals who operate in these institutions with these systems, either comply or ignore those systems. So for us as professional bodies, and in particular for the Law Society of Kenya, our first interest in looking at this monster of corruption, which has continued to bedevil our country and our continent, is the question of institutions. We know that in 2010, we came up with a new institutional framework through the Constitution of Kenya 2010. We have passed several other laws to set up institutions. And the question we'll be asking is, are our institutions working as intended? Are they fit for purpose? As the Law Society of Kenya, we are particularly interested in focusing on what we call the Chapter 15 commissions, or constitutional commissions and independent offices, of which EACC is one of them. Our initial review has found that these institutions are meant to promote constitutionalism and secure checks and balances to avoid monopoly, are grossly under-resourced, they are grossly underfunded, and that the outcome or output of these commissions and independent offices is not being processed effectively by other governance institutions in Kenya. So the Law Society of Kenya wants to do a constitutional audit, work together with the Constitutional Commission, see where are the gaps between the promise and reality. That is the first thing we commit to do, to ensure that we can strengthen our institutions so that they are able to engage in the activities that they ought to. EACC, for example, releases so many reports. It has so many stakeholders. It's who is EACC, a member of this institution. We need professionals to together and say, we're going to champion what EACC is doing. We're going to champion what Commission on Administrative Justice and all these other commissions and independent offices are doing. When the Auditor General produces a report showing failures in accountability, who is there to champion the outcome of these reports? it has to be us, the professionals. So that is the first thing we commit to doing today and for the months and years ahead. That is to deal with the question of undue monopoly, lack of checks and balances, centralization of power in the hands of a few persons or a few institutions, which is precisely what our constitutional framework is seeking to dismantle. The second element of the Klitgard formula is discretion as a contributor to an environment of corruption. So how do you deal with discretion? By having systems, deploying technology, ensuring that there is effective feedback, that systems are working, and that the scope of the individual to disrupt the systems that have been designed is not there. What do we intend to do as the Law Society of Kenya? We intend, beginning this year, to publish an annual rule of law report to scan what is happening in all the areas of rule of law. And one of the chapters is going to be on corruption or anti-corruption, because it is the fight against corruption that is the positive thing we are trying to attain. East African Law Society has already published a rule of law report and index for the East African countries. The World Justice Forum publishes a global report on rule of law and an index. It is high time we have independent bodies like the Law Society of Kenya working with other professionals, publishing a rule of law report for Kenya so that we can see where we are having systemic failures. Even when we deploy technology, how we undermine that technology, how we move around the technology, and we ensure that the discretion is abused so that we can scan, we can create a baseline from which to see how to grow in the fight against corruption. The third element of Klitgard's formula is accountability. And I want to discuss accountability at the level of individuals, although it also applies to institutions. I can say there are 4 elements of accountability. I'll call them complaints, civil, criminal, and disciplinary processes. Complaints are the processes that take place when the users of the services, Kenyans, come and they say, we are not getting the services that we anticipated we'll get according to your service charter. Please do something about it. Are the feedback mechanisms working? We even have an entire constitutional commission to ensure that all state agencies are dealing with complaints effectively. That is the Ombudsman Office or the Commission on Administrative Justice. We want to see, are our institutions deploying effective infrastructure, systems, and mechanisms to deal with complaints? Because complaints are the daily thermometer of measuring accountability. Second, of course, is civil. And we know that EACC has deployed civil mechanisms to recover assets that are unexplained and so on. People can go to court and seek civil liability. They can seek compensation. We've even seen recently that the government is trying to compensate the victims of protests. That is part of civil. Lawyers are always taking part in civil as well as criminal processes as representatives of the victims. Are our civil processes working effectively? And that takes us to the criminal. The entire value chain of criminal accountability, beginning with the police, beginning with the prosecution services, the courts, the lawyers who represent both the victims and the accused in the court processes, the prison service, how effectively are they working? This is going to be part of the subject of our rule of law report. And finally, and for me, I feel this has been part of the missing link to secure accountability, is the question of disciplinary processes. Until such a time that the individual officer is aware that they are going to individual accountability for any failures in fighting corruption or following the law, direct disciplinary accountability, vicarious or command responsibility, then the monster of corruption will remain too big for us. It will become something we all collectively deplore when we come to forums like this and then individually tolerate in case-by-case basis. And that is the crisis of our country, that whenever we come together, we collectively deplore corruption. But when now we are faced with individual cases, many of us don't rise up to the standards that are expected by the Constitution and the law. So we want to ensure that there's that individual accountability by asking professionals, let's collect the evidence of significant failures in fighting corruption, in issues of fraud, and let us pursue individual accountability against the respective officers. That is our commitment as the Law Society of Kenya. If we're able to get the evidence, even from EACC, that's our commitment. We are going to pursue whatever individual it is, regardless of how high they are, so that we can at least ensure that we make an example to all Kenyans that accountability is not just collective. It shall also be individual. On behalf of the professional bodies and the Law Society of Kenya, we commend the institutions that are gathered here. We commit to you our readiness and dedication to work with you so that we can eventually and practically and substantively vanquish the monster of corruption. This is a task that cannot be accomplished by ourselves alone. It requires even spiritual powers and efforts. And so we also ask the Almighty God to watch over us so that we can safely vanquish this monster. It is a monster that is not just physical. It even has a spiritual and philosophical dimension. May it be vanquished. And may today, like other days, may today mark a very serious beginning and commitment by professional bodies to fight and vanquish, together with other well-meaning institutions and Kenyans, the monster of corruption. Corruption, chini. Chini, chini kabisa. Thank you.
Another round of applause to Senior Counsel Kajama. You will agree with me, though lawyers don't relate very well with the mathematical formulas, Kajama has done a very good job with the Klinkler formula. So we really appreciate you, Mr. President, for your remarks. The next speaker will speak on behalf of regulatory bodies. And this is Engineer Maurice Akech, who is the Executive Director and the Secretary of Board of the National Construction Authority. Welcome, Engineer.
Thank you, our moderator. To the chair of the commission, that's ECC, the secretary commission, that's CEO, commissioners, colleagues, and invited guests. Allow me, as they say, just to stand what has been established at the beginning. I stand here on invitation by EACC to make some remarks on behalf of the regulators or regulatory bodies and agencies in Kenya. First, I'm very pleased to be standing here with the regulators, which play a role in ensuring that whatever you do, whatever you consume, where you pass, everything that happens is in order and safe. It is not for granted, I don't take it for granted that we play in that space, because every day people wake up and look up to us to ensure that they are safe. But for that to happen, there must be integrity. That's the big question. And that integrity must be across all players in the value chain. The regulator will put standards, ensure they are enforced, and also they are compliant. But the players must also ensure that they play as per the books and the rules that have been set So allow me to start off by saying the theme of this year's conference on anti-corruption is scaling up the promotion of integrity and anti-corruption actions across Africa. Here in Kenya, I know we play a very important role as public sector regulators, and we should do this by demonstrating high integrity levels on safety, high integrity levels so that our institutions operate optimally with high performance levels resulting in improved customer satisfaction. I know you may be wondering, when you talk about regulators, in Kenya alone, we have over 120. In fact, to be exact, 127 of them playing in that space, all with 127 CEOs, 127 chairpersons, and all the players. And of course, they have a state agency or a state department that they belong to and ministries. This is a big enterprise. The question is, we perform our various functions across board, but at the end of the day, we must ensure that our role does not lead to loss of human lives, does not lead to, and does not lead to industry. So we act as gatekeepers of you, the consumers, and we ensure that at the end of the day, what you are facing is safe. I want to give you an example. I know many of us here have taken a flight to somewhere. Have you ever imagined when you enter that aircraft, what could happen in the air midway? First of all, you entrust your safety on the pilot and of course the aircraft. That by the grace of God, you will land where you're going safely and continue your business. Supposing the regulator for that pilot did not do its job. I don't want to mention names here. Only NCO is known because that's the person making presentation. Imagine the person entrusted with the servicing that aircraft has been regulated by someone and they didn't do the job. Either they bought their license, of course the license has to be bought, but the buying here is paying for the requisite fees, not paying for flouting the standards that have been set. Imagine if they have gotten their license in a manner that is not proper. Let me not go very far. We are now sitting in this building. Are you aware this building has been done by an architect, an engineer, a contractor, regulated by various bodies, and that contractor is under my hand. If they didn't do their job well, will you be sitting here safe? In fact, nobody would want to come in. So you came in because you knew where you're going has been taken care of by another body called a regulator. And that must be done through an integral process. There must be integrity, and that's why we are sitting here pretty that this building will not collapse on us at the end of the day. Let me give my in context by using NCA. So as a construction industry regulator, our role is to ensure that contractors are licensed, the construction projects are registered, and they are done to the required standards. I want to indicate that as an authority, for us to be able to do that, we have onboarded our work, or all that we do through an online or technology has been onboarded to ensure that when I employ or give you that service, I do not need to know who you are. So technology will enhance integrity and will bring an aspect of mitigating corruption because I'll be working with a system, not the person. So our dear regulators who are here or listening online, we must ensure that all our services are finding people asking for fees that are not required because we have not communicated enough to the public. So communication and training is one of the key elements required to ensure there is transparency and accountability for service deliveries that we do. So we also know that with proper consumer education, their rights as consumers will be more transparent and they'll be able to approach us in an open manner. Ladies and gentlemen, as I come to close, allow me to say that this meeting would not have come at a better time because this is my first time to join ESCC. Many times, when you hear somebody is going to ESCC, you know what people think about. And I'm happy today I've come here on a positive note. And it's an engagement that needs to continue happening from time to time so that people see, look forward to coming to ACC to engage, not to be taken to task. And as our journey towards ensuring that we work with all stakeholders that are key, I also want to indicate that we've also had engagement with the Commission of Administrative Justice, that is the Ombudsman. We've just only last week, we had a meeting with the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions on matters prosecution for those who do not comply. And the speaker that has just spoken before me, President of LSK, Charles Kanjama, we had a meeting also last week where we engaged on how to enhance our legal compliance and enforcement. And today we had ESCC, though on invitation of ESCC, but a very important engagement to enhance our agenda. As I come to the end, let's inculcate a culture of integrity and anti-corruption to ensure that the services we offer are safe, have no bias, and there's trust in what we do at the end of the day. Integrity will enhance trust levels on goods and services that wananchi consume or use from time to time. Kenya has a new building code, 2025, and this is for all of us as a country and as Africa. Thank you, and may God bless you.
Engineer requires another round of applause for ably representing the regulatory bodies. I think they are happy wherever they are. In this event, we are live on all ESCC social media platforms, and therefore the others are still able to follow on what is going on in this meeting. Our next set of remarks will come from a representative of the development partners. And this will be a representative of the UNODC, Mr. Kojo Otiso. Welcome, Mr. Otiso.
I want to thank the moderator. You called me Otiso. They told me it sounds like Kenyan name. My name is actually Achiso. Thank you very much. And also, the previous speaker stated that today is his first time here in ACC. Me, I might say this is my second time here in ACC. 14 years ago, I mean 2012, I was here. That time I was very young, not wearing glass. I came, that was also my first visit in Kenya, because that time I was working with the Basel Institute on Governance, International Center of Asset Recovery, and then we were here for 2 weeks training with lawyers of ACC. So I'm happy to be here almost 40 years after my first visit in Kenya. Dr. David Oginde, Chairperson ACC, Mr. Abdi Mahmoud, Secretary, CEO, ACC, Senior Counsel Charles Kanjama, President of Law Society of Kenya, Philo Kenya Leadership Integrity Forum, CLIF, stakeholders and speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to join you today as we commemorate the African Anti-Corruption Day here at the Integrity Center. I'm honored to be with you on behalf of the United Nations on Drug and Crime, UNODC, but also representing all the technical assistance providers, and also particularly representing the Illicit Finance Fusion Center for Africa. Last year, 2025, UNODC has established a illicit financial fusion center for Africa based here in Nairobi, and I'm very privileged to be appointed as the coordinator of that center. It's especially fitting to mark this occasion in Nairobi, a city that proudly hosts our center, but also we all hear the ongoing reform. We also establish financial crime, corruption and financial crime hub for Africa, and Kenya, Nairobi is hosting also that center so that we can support countries' effort to combat corruption, illicit financial flow, and financial crime across the continent. I bring also warm greeting from UNODC and express our appreciation to the AACC and Kenya Leadership Integrity Forum, CLIF, for convening Kenya development partners, professional bodies, regulators, and youth representatives around one table to mark this important occasion. The range of participants gathered here today, it's itself a powerful example of a whole society approach called by the theme of this year. So we can see the range of participants to this commemoration. For our office, I mean UNODC, scaling up integrity across Africa is not a distant aspiration. It's a daily work of strengthening institutions, building partnership, and delivering results. Here in Kenya, through the European Union funded program for legal empowerment and aid delivery called PLEAD, our office, UNODC, work closely with justice sectors institutions to strengthen access to justice and accelerate institutional transformation. Our support includes the digitalization of criminal justice processes, the development of integrated case management systems, the reinforcement of anti-corruption and accountability mechanisms, and the promotion of a more efficient, transparent, and citizen-centered justice system. In addition, as I mentioned at the beginning, through our Illicit Finance Fusion Center for Africa, a key component of UNODC Anti-Corruption and Financial Crime Hub for Africa, we provide special assistance to support financial investigation, asset recovery, beneficial ownership transparency, and procurement integrity across member states in sub-Saharan Africa. And the results of this initiative speak for themselves and demonstrate what scaling up can mean in practice. Between 2023 and 2025, for example, the ADCC recover illicitly acquired asset value at approximately 77 million USD, and also prevented a further 185 million in loss. Together, if you put all this together, this equivalent to roughly 2% of Kenya national budget. Also last year, Kenya adopted both the Conflict of Interest Act and the Virtual Asset Service Providers Act. During the same period, more than 100 law enforcement officers were trained by our office in financial investigation, contributing directly to new virtual asset-related cases that are now under investigation. Kenya achievements are also part of a larger continent story. Kenya is an active member of UNODC Eastern Africa Anti-Corruption Platform and currently chair its working group on financial investigation and asset recovery, which positions the country at the center of regional effort to trace, seize, and return stolen assets. Across the region, the member of the Eastern Africa Anti-Corruption Authorities recover and preserve more than 309 million in assets during 2022 and 2023 alone. Since 2023, our office, UNODC, supported the development of financial investigation and asset recovery skill for more than 250 law enforcement and judicial authorities from Kenya, Tanzania, Ethiopia, and Uganda. I would like to particularly acknowledge Dr. Oginde and Mr. Mahmoud for AACC successful hosting of the 16th IACA Annual General Meeting, and then also the 8th ARINEA, Asset Recovery Interagency Network for Africa Annual Meeting held last year. This gathering led to the adoption of a regional indicators for measuring progress against Eastern Africa's thematic priority area, a concrete and measurable step toward the scaling up of integrity that we are celebrating today. And more recently, AACC hosting of the 8th, I mentioned the 8th IACA Annual General Meeting here in Nairobi, brought together more than 30 anti-corruption agencies from across the continent and marked the successful launch of the Africa Anti-Corruption Study and Research Center, CERAC. This architecture of collaboration is producing tangible results. The Asset Recovery Interagency Network for Southern Africa, ARINSA, has increased the reinvestment of recovered assets by more than 130-fold since 2022, reaching 163 million in 2024. Meanwhile, the ARINWA, which is the West Africa counterpart of ARINSA, has helped the region progress from having one functioning asset recovery office in 2014 to up to 80% of member state country having one asset recovery office today. Countries such as Ethiopia, Senegal have also recorded significant asset recovery achievement alongside important legal reform and institutional strengthening. In Senegal case, this effort contribute to its removal from the Financial Action Task Force FATF gray list. We know now Kenya is also in the list, but also making progress. And then we do believe that this progress also will help the country to exit the gray list. But we also know that challenge remain, and as they do everywhere. Beneficial ownership information continue to be difficult to verify in practice. Asset recovery system require ongoing strengthening. Criminal network continue to evolve, including through the use of virtual assets and emerging technology. At this, the theme of this year, so we are commemorating the African Anti-Corruption Day. The theme reminds us scaling up integrity is not a single milestone. It is also sustained and collective effort. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of UNODC and our development colleague, I want to again congratulate the AACC and Cliff for convening this important event, and also reaffirm our commitment to working this evening alongside Kenya. I hope I can make this shortly, written by my colleague Jennifer. Pamoja tudumishe maadili. Asante seni.
Thank you, Mr. Atiso. The Kiswahili is perfect. So, we give another round of applause to Mr. Atiso. UNODC has been a very practical partner in the fight against corruption, and therefore the various sectors continue to appreciate the support received from UNODC from the various programs. Our next speaker will be the Director General of Kura, Engineer Cyrus Kinoti. Welcome, DG.
Chairperson of EACC, CEO of EACC, Chair, Commissioners present, other distinguished guests, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. I represent the transport sector, meaning the road sector, and we invited to this meeting maybe because you move very high-level projects. It doesn't mean that we have anything to do with corruption. Leaving this morning, I told my colleagues, I'm going for a meeting at the EACC. And the Indian question was that, okay, is everything okay? I told them, okay, I'm just going to go and participate in African Anti-Corruption Day meeting. Bridges, but the route is on it offers. I'm sure all of you here used a road before you came here. Our children went to school this morning. Other services are offered by roads. So roads are a key social action which puts the government interference with the progress of the capacity to economic development. Is not a matter of the money lost. Development, economic development, every diverted shilling is an structure. Hold them. That is why we treat the scale of the challenge is sobering. The African Development Bank estimates that Africa loses more than 580 billion a year to corruption combined with illicit capital outflows. This is equivalent to roughly 1.6 billion shillings draining out of the continent every day. Of that figure, infrastructure corruption alone accounts for an estimated 148 billion annually, with a 90 billion loss to illicit financial flow and 275 billion to profit shifting by multinational corporations. On our sector. These packages drive the continent's infrastructure financing needs with an infrastructure funding gap of around 1 billion. A significant share of that infrastructure financing gap. That funding roads, schools, as clean water across this continent. At Kura, we treat this with contract carries the of rules, regular audits, and deliberate use of technology to strengthen accountability. These are the mechanisms that safeguard public resources and ensure every shilling delivers value for money. I can give an example. In Nairobi alone, we are rolling out a project at ITS transport system, investing for 4 billion Kenya shillings in Nairobi alone with technology to manage our projects which are on the ground, and we are looking that in the next 3 years be able to manage our traffic in Nairobi in all our almost 300 junctions in Nairobi using intelligent or artificial intelligence, thus eliminating the need to have physical policemen to manage those routes. There's a conversation we are having with the National Police on that, and this is going to ensure that we really benefit from technology, benefit from infrastructure we have, and also protect the environment because you have less emissions of carbon and emissions because the efficient flow of traffic. Mechanisms alone, what on the ground alone does not guarantee integrity. Integrity is ultimately a matter of individual choice. The choice made when no one is watching, the discipline to reject shortcuts, the willingness to speak up when something is wrong. Public service and foremost, public service is first and foremost a public trust. The responsibility is not confined to one officer or institution, whether an engineer, an accountant, procurement officer, contractor, or a citizen. Scale begins with the individual and each of us. Consistency, disciplined acts of honesty, compounded across an institution are what build trust over time. The things we do today will serve generations we may never meet. May they reflect the values we want those generations to inherit: honesty, accountability, and excellence. If we remain true to these values, our work will do more than connect places. It will connect people to opportunities, strengthen public trust, and advance the development in Kenya across Africa. Guides our work. Every road we build is closer to the future we are working for, and that future we are looking. Unasema tuangamize ufisadi nchi yetu. Asante.
We appreciate it once more. Which is monitoring project. It was felt that during this commemoration, we invite DG Kura, who implements some of the biggest projects, to come and speak to us. So DG, well done. With that, we want to move to the next. I have Mr. Mwangi. I now want to give him an opportunity. I have no idea what he wants to do, but we will join him in whatever he's going to instruct us to do. Welcome, Mr. Mwangi.
Good morning. To rise up on our feet. There's a song together and appreciate. My name is Moses Githinji Mwangi, and I serve as the Evangelical Youth Alliance Chair. And it's great to have Bishop here, Emeritus of EAK. Asante sana. I think the tech team is ready. pole. Sometimes this thing come with manenos. All right, we can have some sound. So we'll sing along.
Umoja ni fahari yetu, undugu ndio nguvu.
Let's go.
Chuki na ukabila hatutaki hata kamwe. Lazima tuungane, tuijenge nchi yetu, pasiwe hata moja anayetenganisha. Naishi na tumaini, najitolea daima Kenya, hakika ya bendera ni uthabiti wangu. Nyeusi ya wananchi na nyekundu ni ya damu, kijani ni ya ardhi, nyeupe ya amani. Daima mimi Mkenya, mwananchi mzalendo.
Thank you so much. You can clap for yourselves. Now everybody can yes, you may have your seats. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you, Moses. You need a clap. Thank you for that interlude. Now we move to receive our first keynote remarks, and this will come from the Secretary of the Clive National Coordinating Committee, who is also the Secretary Chief Executive Officer of the EACC, Mr. Abdi Mahmoud. Welcome, sir.
Simonipigia makofi. Thank you, Jackson. I think let me just interfere with the protocol a bit, because there is a very important person who is very busy, who has found time to join us today, the DIG of Administration Police Service, Bwana Masengeli. Please just come and greet. I know you talk to people every day, so you don't need a written speech. You just, this is part of your everyday work. Karibu.
Thank you so much, Bwana CEO, and thank you for the opportunity as well. Good morning. Look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, congratulations. Ask your neighbor, as the motto says, tuungane, tuangamize, bana. Pamoja tutumishe maadili. Lakini tuangamize ufisadi, tuchenge Kenya. Si ndio? Hebu turudie wote, tuangamize ufisadi. We as the police, we have nothing else to do is to ensure your safety. Your safety is our responsibility. And we are the most invited guests in enforcing law, because any law breaker, we automatically, and we work hand in hand with EACC to ensure integrity is there. I don't have much to say because it's not my day, but how I wish that this journey we have to go together, all of us. It is all collective work that we have to do to build our Kenya. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So, with that, I think there are two very important people three actually, who spoke here, who, if they shepherd the people they lead properly, we may not have any work at EACC. Those are the professionals and regulatory bodies. And that is why in our strategic focus, those two institutions or other areas are so critical, because most of the challenges we have are either from professionals or regulators who actually refuse to regulate, or who have failed in regulating the people, or rather the sectors they are supposed to regulate. So I'm glad both of them are represented here, and they have committed that they will do things better than they were doing before. So that is quite encouraging. So the chairperson of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, commissioners of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is a great honor to join you today as we commemorate the 2026 African Anti-Corruption Day. Today, Kenya joins the rest of Africa in reaffirming our shared commitment to building a continent founded on integrity, accountability, transparency, and good governance. This year's African Union theme, Scaling Up Promotion of Integrity and Anti-Corruption Actions Across Africa, is both timely and important. It reminds us that fighting corruption cannot be the responsibility of a few agencies. It requires government, private sector, civil society, professional bodies, the media, development partners, and every citizen to play their part, all in one accord. Ladies and gentlemen, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission remains committed to delivering on its constitutional mandate of preventing and combating corruption and economic crimes, promoting ethics and integrity, and safeguarding public resources for the benefit of all Kenyans. Over the past 3 years, the Commission has significantly strengthened its interventions in corruption prevention, enforcement, public education, institutional reforms, and international cooperation. Those interventions are anchored on the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission Strategic Plan 2023-2028, which prioritizes corruption prevention, strengthening enforcement, and building a national culture of integrity. During the same period, the Commission has successfully recovered public assets worth billions of shillings and prevented additional assets suspected to have been acquired. Successfully recovered public assets worth billions of shillings and preserved additional assets suspected to have been acquired through corrupt means, that ensuring that stolen public assets are returned to people of Kenya. The Commission has also intensified the monitoring of major public investments, strengthened corruption risk across public institutions, and expanded integrity out government. Ladies and gentlemen, in strengthening Kenya's integrity framework was the enactment of the Conflict of Interest Act. This act provides stronger safeguards against conflict between duty and private interest. It enhances transparency, strengthens accountability, and provides clear standards expected of state and public officers. The Commission, working with the relevant government agencies, will support effective implementation of the new legal framework. The fight against corruption cannot succeed through enforcement alone. It requires strategic collaboration between all actors, whether they are governmental or non-governmental. Chairperson of the Anti-Corruption Committee of the National Council on Administration of Justice, NCAJ, I have and will continue championing for stronger interagency collaboration in the fight against corruption. The NCAJ provides a platform for knowledge sharing, addressing operations, and improving overall effectiveness of the criminal justice system. Kenya continues to play an effective leadership role beyond our borders. It is indeed a great honor for our country to serve as president of the East African Association of Anti-Corruption Authorities, IACA. Through IACA, we are promoting stronger regional cooperation, sharing knowledge, strengthening institutional collaboration in tackling corruption that increasingly national. The Commission also serves on the Executive Committee of the Association of African Anti-Corruption and the International Association of Anti-Corruption Authorities, IAACA. These platforms enables Kenya to contribute to continental and global discussions on asset recovery, corruption prevention, international cooperations, and implementation of best practices. As you know, corruption does not respect borders. Our responses must therefore be equally coordinated internationally. Distinguished guests, another significant milestone for our country is the establishment of the African Center for Research and Anti-Corruption Studies, which was officially opened in June this year at the Central Bank of Kenya's Institute of Monetary Studies in Nairobi. The center is flagship initiative for the Association of African Anti-Corruption Authorities. The center will serve as a hub for research, policy development, professional training, innovation, and knowledge sharing, generating African-led solutions to Africa's corruption challenges and strengthening the continent's collective capacity to prevent and combat corruption. I believe that sustainable solutions must be informed by research, innovation, and African experiences which are unique. This center will contribute significantly towards achieving this vision. Ladies and gentlemen, as we commemorate the African Anti-Corruption Day, I express my deep appreciation to the African Union Advisory Board Against Corruption, AUABC, for its unwavering leadership in mobilizing African Union member states towards implementation of the African Union Convention on Prevention and Combating Corruption. I'm equally grateful to the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, the UNODC, for its outstanding partnership, particularly through the Program for Legal Empowerment and Aid Delivery, PLEAD 2, where the EACC has significantly benefited from. The Anti-Corruption Hub, which continues to strengthen institutional capacity, support reforms, and promote innovation in anti-corruption interventions. I also wish to recognize the invaluable contribution of the civil society organizations, professional associations, faith-based organizations, the private sector, academia, the media, and all members of the Kenya Leadership Integrity Forum. Your partnership continues to strengthen our national integrity system. Ladies and gentlemen, let us remember that corruption is not simply a legal issue, but a developmental issue. Corruption steals opportunities from our young people and denies families access to dignified life. Corruption undermines public trust, weakens institutions, and ultimately takes away the hope of the nation. Every act of integrity, however small, contributes to building a stronger nation. When we refuse to give bribe for service, when we report corruption, when our institutions strengthen accountability, when businesses choose ethical conduct, each one of us contributes to a better Kenya. I therefore call upon every Kenyan and in ambassador more prosperous and more just Africa for all Africans. Thank you for your attention. I now take this opportunity to invite the chairperson of the EACC, Dr. David Oginde, to make his remarks. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much, CEO, for your remarks. Let's give him another clap. You've raised pertinent questions and issues. I want to appreciate each and every person who has stood here, particularly those of you who we invited to be with us on this day, and the remarks that you have made. I was particularly impressed by Linda representing the young people. We want to appreciate you for the courage and setting the tone for the day with such energy. And thank you also, those of you who have spoken, each one of you. We appreciate all of you. And to all who have come to attend this session, I want to also express my appreciation riding on the protocols that were earlier set in place. Today, we are gathered here because of corruption. It is unfortunate that a continent can set up a date and a day to think about corruption. That alone is a bad thing. And so it's not something to be proud of that we are here today on the Africa Anti-Corruption Day. Such a day should not exist. But there you are. It exists because we have not done things the way we should do them. Our theme is scaling up the promotion of integrity and anti-corruption actions across Africa. It is challenging us to deepen our collective commitment to integrity and accountability across our continent. The conversation comes at a very defining moment when public expectation for accountability, ethical leadership, and prudent stewardship of public resources is quite high. We have had movements across the continent that have risen up against unethical practices that sometimes are demonstrated by our leaders. These rising expectations remind us that promoting integrity is an important aspiration that we must commit ourselves to, because it helps to build our institutions so that corruption is reduced, if not eliminated, from among us. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, as has been mentioned by our CEO, has over the years progressively shifted from a predominantly enforcement approach to a more approach towards prevention, public education, investigations, asset recovery, and strategic partnerships that we believe would help us to succeed in this fight. Whereas I know that many of us are focused on measuring the success of our work only by the number of cases investigated and successfully prosecuted, the fight against corruption must also reduce the number of opportunities for corruption that we encounter every day. The conversation around the world is now shifting towards building institutions that are capable of anticipating, resisting, and preventing corruption. as a commission, we are moving more towards compliance-driven model, towards governance-centered approach that seeks to address both the symptoms and structures that drive corruption. The CEO has mentioned to us the kind of work that we are doing and the successes that we are meeting in these efforts. For example, in corruption risk assessment, over the last 20 governments have been assessed, and those who have taken this seriously are making some very good progress in their work. We have enhanced evidence-based monitoring of capital-intensive projects. Systems examinations have been conducted in about 41 ministries, departments, and agencies of government. And again, we can say that this seriously have actually shown evidence of progress. And targeted integrity tests have been conducted in various public institutions. We have also issued advisories to various individuals and institutions to conduct themselves in a manner that upholds in integrity. We continue to strengthen partnerships across that we awareness. We have particularly focused on the young people in the recent past, and we have been very encouraged by the enthusiasm that has been shown by young people in this fight against corruption. As mentioned by Linda earlier, it is a very sad state of affairs to find that many young people are openly ready and willing to participate in corruption, given the chance. This is something that we must reverse. We must work towards reversing that so that young people are upheld by any actions of lack of integrity. What have we seen from these actions? We have noted that institutions that proactively implement corruption risk assessments, strengthen internal controls, and cultivate ethical leadership have consistently experienced fewer integrity breaches than those relying solely on corrective measures. That means that we need to strengthen this area and help our institutions to work on their systems that can prevent corruption. We have also noticed that citizen engagement is becoming a major area of focus. We have seen growth in public reporting, whistleblower information, community dialogues, media engagement, and I want to appreciate especially the media for the work they are doing in exposing corrupt practices. Yes, that sometimes will take us months, lots of money for us to do effective investigation and eventual prosecution. You have prosecuted this in the public court, and I believe you are making a significant contribution to our fight against corruption, and I want to put hats off to the media for the work that you are doing. We are moving to strategic partnerships to multiply our efforts with law enforcement agencies, oversight institutions, professional bodies, education, the media, faith-based organizations. In fact, we want to now focus a little more on the faith-based community because you have a significant role in upholding values, promoting ethics, and ensuring that those people who are of your membership. It's amazing that most of the people who engage in corruption and other unethical practices are also members, very good members of our religious institutions. We appreciate them and we give them opportunity to speak at our platforms and to contribute part of the loot that they have taken as donations for our development. This is something that must change if we are going to scale up our fight against corruption. We have to move from manual to oversight to technology-based system, because, as has been mentioned by one of our speakers, digitization helps in reducing and combating corruption. And so we are working towards enhancing digital service delivery, e-procurement, data analytics, artificial intelligence, which is now becoming a center of operation, so that we can enhance our capacity to identify corruption risks and improve transparency. As we consider scaling up the promotion of integrity and anti-corruption fight actions across Africa, allow me to reflect on the ongoing and soon coming to an end FIFA World Cup, from where I have picked a few lessons about winning championships. The reality is that it requires much more talented players to win the championship. At its core, if you look at those teams that have done, winning requires a culture of integrity, of teamwork, of discipline, and of fair play. I watched some of the games, and I must confess, normally these days, interact with people, I can't help but see instance but here are some lessons that I picked. Winning the World Cup, no nation wins the World Cup simply because it had a few brilliant footballers. Champions are built through years of investment in youth development, in disciplined coaching, in transparent administration, teamwork, and respect for the rules. Some of the players have been on the investment, management, and serious claims in with kind also will not defeat corruption through a few uncoordinated efforts. We must build an system of integrity from our schools, our homes, our businesses, our governments, and our communities. It is the only way we can participate in the World Cup of integrity. Integrity must become our ecosystem, not an event. The second lesson I learned, or I picked, is that football, one player who ignores the game plan can cost the entire team the match. One corrupt procurement can derail the entire project. One dishonest accountant can destroy an organization. A compromised professional can undermine the success of a project. A compromised judge can undermine justice. One bribed official can destroy and damage public confidence. In football, every player wears the same jersey because they pursue one goal. Likewise, every African citizen, we must wear the same jersey of integrity that can help us in at the arena. There is no way we can be world leaders if corruption is at the center. Let's work towards ensuring that we win this game. The third thing is in the no concentrate practice or into the field. Integrity must be developed through daily choices that we make. Our institutions are our training ground. If we compromise in small matters every day, we cannot expect to triumph over grand corruption tomorrow within a few minutes. The referee plays a significant role. Football only works because everyone accepts common rules, impartial referees, and consequences for violation. In the pocket of every referee, there are cards. A yellow card, a red card. If you don't play according to the rules, they pull them out. And that card, you cannot negotiate. You may be angry, you may do whatever you want, but if the referee says you are going out, you go out. That is the rule. Imagine a World Cup where players ignore rules that have been put there. They have given a red card and they insist they continue playing. There is no way the game can be played. If we are going to win the war, the battle, the game of integrity, our nations will only prosper where rules are followed, where institutions are impartial, justice is administered fairly, and those who have violated must step out. If you are given a yellow card, please step aside. If you are given a red card, go out. And don't continue to be the head of an institution that you are working hard to bring down. Corruption is like bribing a referee. It may appear to benefit a team for a moment, but ultimately it destroys confidence in the entire game. We must reject the culture of impunity that seems to be taking ground in our continent. Finally, scaling up means moving from just one team to an entire continent. FIFA World Cup involves 48 nations, but only one champion eventually takes the trophy. It was amazing how our support moved from our home teams to our regions, to our continent, and eventually to our teams at the global level as those fell by the roadside. So that when Egypt got where it got, all Africans became Egyptians. We were supporting our team. When East Africa had their team, we were supporting our team. Unfortunately, our local team didn't get there. Imagine if we approached integrity in the same way, that we want it right from home, right from our community, into our organizations, into our country, and eventually into our continent. We can win this game of integrity. Imagine our governments, businesses, schools, faith community, and citizens If we were all training towards integrity with the discipline that elite athletes devote to soccer, Africa's greatest victory would not be about lifting the World Cup trophy, but building a continent where integrity is our identity and corruption is defeated. Linda said she's a researcher. I would like you to try and find out, how are the winning teams in the world doing it? Is there something that 1 billion Africans are not doing so that we cannot win the World Cup? Please find out. You might find that corruption might be somewhere in there. Winning factors for Africa require that we work on integrity. Every 4 years, the world gathers to watch nations compete for football's greatest prize. Every year, the Transparency International issues a report on how different nations are performing in this matter of integrity. Just like in soccer, I'm afraid to say, in this report, Africa is not doing well. Year after year, our nations do not score as well as we should. I believe we can do better. I believe we have what it takes. Champions are not crowned because of one brilliant match, but because they have built a winning culture over many years. For those of you who are in the rugby, our fans of rugby, which is another global game, you may know there's a team called All Blacks of New Zealand. That team has either been the winner or number 2 for over 40 years consecutively. 40 years. Certainly they are not the same team. They are not the same captains. They are not the same coaches. But they have built a culture of integrity, of doing discipline. They check even when they wake up, they check how you have made your bed as a player. And you can be disqualified from playing if you didn't make your bed when you woke up. They check the hostels where they live when they go to play a match. How you have kept things around your bed. Little disciplines that have caused this team to win matches for over 40 years. Can we adopt the same principles so that we can scale up this matter of integrity in every place we find ourselves in this continent? Our goal must be to build sectors where integrity is institutionalized, accountability is strengthened, public resources are safeguarded, and ethical leadership defines our public service. This is what it means to scale up the promotion of integrity and anti-corruption actions across Africa. I believe we can win the World Cup of integrity in Africa. Thank you.
Gibson Mwaita from Transparency International. Welcome, Gibson.
All right, so allow me to ride on the protocol that has already been established. All protocols are observed. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you so much for this opportunity to be able to share a bit of highlights and contribute to the theme for this year, scaling up the promotion of integrity and anti-corruption actions across Africa. It's always good to be in the presence of such good and respectable men and women, and getting to hear the commitment to upscale integrity and the commitment to fight corruption. Really, really good, especially for us as Transparency International Kenya, who our primary agenda is to ensure or to fight corruption and contribute to a corruption-free society. And it's also good to be in the midst of Dr. Bishop Ogenda, always full of lessons, and good to pick some of them. And also good to know that we are sharing a bit of grievances, especially for the World Cup. You know, sometimes we wonder, what happens to the African teams, especially after the second hydration break? Things go higher, haywire. I think we really need to check, what do they consume during that second break? Yeah, but so I want to share a bit of highlights here. And of course, it's also grounded by the fact that, indeed, yes, sustainable integrity actions, as shared by Bishop, really need to be grounded on solution must be informed by research and data, and that's very true. And this part of what I want to share today is part of those particular, or part of research and data. And so I want to just, we are talking about enhancing integrity through effective monitoring of capital-intensive projects. And here, we just want to narrow down to infrastructure. Infrastructure is one of the capital-intensive projects that this country actually has. Why infrastructure? We have the reasons here. You know, it drives economic growth, builds strong communities, builds climate resilience, better governance and future. But on the contrary, it's also very important for us to know that where the risks, where integrity or oversight fails, then we have risks as well. Debt distress is one of them. Lack of transparency, wasted resources is also another. And then, you know, rising global, of course, risks. So if not done well, if we fall short of integrity and oversight, then the flip happens. Yeah? Now, it is also good to just provide just a snippet of what the context is at the moment. And I'm happy with even what engineer, the Chair Kura has talked about, and also painting the amount of money that we lose through corruption yearly. But it also is important to note that from the Project Management Institute report 2025, Kenya loses over 600 billion in installed and mismanaged projects. What does that do? Higher debt burden, of course, affects citizens because now services are not delivered, there is no growth. The corruption challenge still remains, as what Bishop has highlighted. From the Corruption Perception Index, when we released this year, Kenya has regressed in terms of scoring from a 31 to a 32. From a 32 to a 31, sorry. And of course, then that means that we are stagnating as a country. They still lost trust. And of course, there is limited progress. But of that, it's also important to note that currently in Kenya, there is rise in public-private partnership in infrastructure development. Roads, rail, energy, water, etc. Yeah? Now, even with all that, we still record a lot of governance challenges in PPPs. Weak implementation, limited oversight. I'll be sharing specific and really example of what that means. Political interference is another one that we're grappling with. We know that infrastructure and capital-intensive projects, there's a lot of politics involved. good politics is good, bad politics, not good. And of course, then the consequences is wasted public resources, projects that are delayed or with costs that overrun, wasted opportunities as well as slower development. So with this, Transparency International developed a tool, an infrastructure corruption risk assessment tool. A very near scientific way of actually identifying risks, scoring vulnerability, and coming up with practical recommendations and solutions to actually be able to avert or deter those risks from becoming issues or from becoming corruption cases. And so this tool is called the ICRAT, Infrastructure Corruption Risk Assessment Tool, which basically identify loopholes that enable corruption at the whole complete cycle of projects, all the way from selection to planning to implementation to delivery as well as maintenance. Focus on risks more and also score the vulnerability to be able to come up with very specific recommendations in terms of how to deter that. And of course then support accountability. Key steps involved in this particular tool. One is assessing the context. The context here is divided into two. There's the country context, which partly I've talked about and shared, and also there's the agency context, the direct implementer of a particular project that is being undertaken by a country. And then categorizing also the project selection process. How was the project arrived at? Is it a privately initiated project? Is it a government already envisioned project? How was it exactly arrived at? And then also then assess the project vulnerabilities, and then of course provide the summary indicating, calculating. It's a step-by-step process, and calculating, coming up with what is the risk, what is the vulnerability score in that particular project. And then of course finally then sharing the findings. So this particular tool, ICRAT tool, Infrastructure Corruption Risk Assessment Tool, has a score of 5, a risk level of 5. 5 means that really high risk, ICU kind of thing, okay? But on the contrary, 1 means, no risk at all, we are good. Everything has been done correctly, clean bill of health, and this is a good project from all the way from project selection, detailed preparation, procurement, construction or implementation, as well as service delivery and maintenance. And we have found that most of the time where we have problem is usually procurement, most of the time. So with the tool that I've talked about, ICRAT, we sampled 3 major projects in this country and ran that kind of assessment using that particular tool. So what do we have here? What did we get? 1, in terms of how we did or what we did with those particular 3 projects. Number 1, we were able to do comprehensive literature review, looking at the information required or available online, looking at the documents, requesting for more information where we did not have information from the different agencies and the ministries and the stakeholders, and then looking at all that and analyzing it. And then, of course, we also conducted key informant interviews for different individuals established or identified in the process of either selection or implementing a project. We had focus group discussions. We went for fact-finding missions to actually be able to see, get to the ground and see exactly what is happening versus what has been reported. And then, of course, finally, and a very important one, is a multidisciplinary scoring exercise that we had. The ICRAT tool brings together data, experts, and stakeholders to actually be able to sit down, look at it comprehensively, do the scoring, and put everything together, and then arrive at a score. So, what did we get? When it comes to the country context, the country context for the 3 projects is 1, because we are talking about a country. So it's the same, it's Kenyan context. So with that, the risk score was at 4.1 out of 5. 5 being the highest and the worst, ladies and gentlemen. And part of really what we found is what we have highlighted here. When it comes to legal, judicial, and whistleblower, gaps remain still in judicial efficiency, perceived independence, and strong whistleblower protection, enforcement, which are missing. Public finance and procurement also. We have strong legal frameworks. That one is no doubt. However, enforcement, that does not translate to actualization on the ground. And really, then there were really existing gaps in terms of procurement, irregularities, and political influence risk still remained. And then, of course, we still had corruption perceptions, and then also a huge impediment was access to information. In fact, in one of the projects, initially the documents were there, but at some point all the documents were brought down. Very interesting. Agency context, SGR. So agency is different because goes to specific. The country is overall. So the country is the same for all the three projects, but the agency context then is different. The SGR scored the highest risk at 4.49. Here the SGR, we looked at the phase 1 and phase 2. By the way, to give context to this particular report, we started this in September last year. We finished it and finalized completely on it around March. Okay, so it does not include the phase 3 launched. So limited public participation, vested interest, especially when it comes to project decision making, which was influenced by political and commercial interests. And then transparency on budget, limited public disclosure of full project cost, including even not the contracts and all that not being made public. And of course we know, part of the reason what were given us when we followed up on that was the issue to do with NDAs, non-disclosure agreements and clauses, which become an impediment when it comes to public and accountability, or public accountability, especially when it comes to really interrogating what are some of the things that we're able to get. These are some of the issues surrounding the SGR project still. Documents being kept secret, not meeting the objective. One of it was actually reducing even the traffic on the road, for instance. And possibly, not possibly, but also, according to the cost-benefit analysis, there was a lot of benefit that was supposed to emerge from freight, cargo aspect of the SGR. But that's not the case because a lot of work the SGR is doing right now is passenger. The other one is the Kiambu Civil Servant Housing. Quickly, this is the model in terms of how it was. Acquisition was to be either through tenant purchase scheme or the mortgage option. What did we get out of it? The Kiambu Civil Servant Housing Project, one of those that we sampled, the corruption risk vulnerability was at 3.24, which is moderately high risk. These are some of the issues that came up. Budget and programs are regularly published, but there were still gaps that existed in terms of the children's expenditure was, against the budget allocated. And then, of course, the aspects of conflict of interest and procurement integrity concerns, which were also highlighted and also the same documented in different projects. And then now the other one is we sample is Vihiga. The Kiambu is civil servant housing project. The Vihiga is under the affordable housing project. Two different regimes, of course. For Vihiga, the score was at 3.56, higher than Kiambu. Moderately high risk, but in terms of the specific score, higher than Kiambu. A number of things that came up again are highlighted there. And procedural community engagements, limited evidence of community engagement and public participation, and then missing important project documentations. Very, very key, especially, or very pronounced, especially with Vihiga Affordable Housing Project. So, again, Vihiga Affordable Housing cost and value concerns, allocated 536 million, but again, documents not made public, cost-benefit analysis not available to actually be able to see really what was the justification for this particular project. And then issues of governance and compliance fit for purpose, for instance, not going according to the site committee, for instance, in terms of even the fact that all the projects really needed to be built on lands that have title deed, but there are quite a number, and even us, documented by reports released by the Office of the Auditor General, that a number of the affordable housing projects were missing critical documents such as title deeds. And then quickly moving forward, of course, again, the absence of critical environmental compliance and documentation, which I've highlighted, the score being 3.56. But ladies and gentlemen, in all these projects, one thing was cutting across. One, weak transparency across all these particular projects in terms of information, in terms of availing the necessary documentations and all that. Number two, limited accountability was also cutting across all these projects. And number three, again, it was the aspect of critical decisions being made without proper and deep public scrutiny. That was also a huge hindrance. And with that, then it became very difficult. And again, defeating the very formula, or actually justifying and agreeing with the very formula, or with the very formula of corruption as shared by President. Monopoly plus discretion minus accountability. Again, evident from what we were able to gather. So as I finish, What are some of the things that really we are recommending as far as enhancing integrity in such capital-intensive projects are concerned, and also drawn from this particular project, this particular report, which is one, we really need the government and the agencies really need to ensure that there is value for money in all the projects, from planning and implementing projects that deliver rather than really projects that have value and to actually prevent abuse of private procurement really is undertaken. And then available and availed to the public for scrutiny. The public is not against, for instance, even is not against maybe particular project, but how some projects were selected, how some decisions, but if this information is made available, then individuals who are actually supposed to be delivering this. Important to conduct infrastructure corruption risk assessment. More than 5 vulnerabilities, pick the risks and ensure that policy, and finally, it's important to have the parliament and the different agencies who provide oversight. I finalize my sharing. Life is about choices, and it's a binary most of the time, whether good or bad. In this case, we have an opportunity to actually integrity so that then we are able to jointly come up with a solution and have a better future as envisioned on the right side of my presentation, or not do anything, or upscale corruption and wastage and continue entertaining it, and we end up having the challenges that we have been having and remain on the left side of my presentation. It is us, we have a choice. For us who are in positions, the question would be, what is it that you did? What is it that you will do now, such that you'll be proud of this in the future? And you can actually be able to say, it was during my time that I was able to contribute, I was able to upscale integrity and be able to contribute or have impact on inter-corporation actions that really promoted development in the country. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I stop there.
Another round for Mr. Maita. That was just a snippet on how we can enhance integrity in monitoring capital-intensive projects. Now we are going to get some proposals on strategic priority areas and interventions for scaling up integrity in the next financial year. And this highlight is going to be done by the head of the CLIP Secretariat, Madam Joyce Munene. You have 10 minutes.
Managing expectations. Moses, we are waiting upon you. But maybe before that, I'll pose a question, but I don't really need an answer. It's just for us to think about. Are our security organs manipulated? Kindly allow me to proceed even without the screen showing. My presentation is strategic priorities and interventions for scaling up integrity in financial year 2026-2027. Yes, there we go. Thank you. And the outline has 5 components. Our mandate as EACC. The next one is institutionalizing integrity across sectors, intelligence-led enforcement and asset recovery, digital transformation, partnerships and whole of society approach. From the speakers before me, they have highlighted mostly the why are we doing it, what have we done, but this presentation is about the how in this financial year actually. How do we intend to do it as EACC? What are we urging the other sectors, public and private sectors also to do so that we upscale integrity? So our mandate is four-pronged: law enforcement, promotion of standards and practices in ethics and integrity, corruption prevention, public education and awareness. What are some of our interventions in this financial year, and we urge the sectors to implement? Number one is fully operationalize the Conflict of Interest Act and leadership and integrity frameworks. Also embed integrity risk assessments across ministries, departments, agencies, and counties. Third is to elevate advisory services as the strategic first line of corruption prevention. There is power in the advisories in that, for instance, what Mr. Gibson has highlighted about the capital intense projects. If you can have general guidelines to share with institutions so that before they commence a project, they adhere to a certain checklist so that we prevent corruption in that aspect. I've heard the Director General for Kura mention that we'll have a project worth 44 billion. Now, sir, that you're seated here, I invite you to visit our offices, get a checklist so that you do it right from the onset and see how best that project will be implemented and see if we'll have the checks and balances. And maybe it will form part of our study as one of the best projects. The other one is integrate integrity indicators into institutional performance management frameworks. That starts from this financial year across the public sector. We have strengthened leadership capacity building for boards, for CEOs, state and public officers, integrity assurance officers, corruption prevention committees, just to drive the ethical governance. We also embed mentorship programs across sectors, and I know we'll roll out that program so that matters, ethics, and integrity and leadership are inculcated and infused among the different generations. We'll also entrench integrity recognition and incentive mechanisms so that we appreciate and uphold, and so that we appreciate and acknowledge those upholding integrity. The expected outcome is ethical leadership becomes institutional culture rather than individual choice. As Chair mentioned about culture, institutionalizing a culture. So it's the daily choices that we make. There's reduced corruption vulnerabilities before they occur and increased public sector compliance and accountability. The second front on scaling up integrity is intelligence-led enforcement and asset recovery. That is scaling up intelligence-led investigations to proactively detect and disrupt corruption networks, strengthen financial investigations and tracing of illegally acquired assets, accelerate asset recovery and forfeiture, leverage alternative dispute resolution mechanisms to expedite asset recovery, enhance strategic international cooperation on cross-border asset recovery. The reason why I'm not elaborating on each is because some are very clear, and our expected outcome is increased recovery of illegally acquired assets, enhanced deterrence, and strengthened public confidence in effectiveness of enforcement. The third one is digital transformation. We are urging all sectors, and even as an institution, to digitize core processes just to to enhance transparency. And in digitizing, we urge institutions not only to reduce paperwork, but to enhance integrity is enhanced. We champion digital systems across sectors, including the e-procurement and digital records management, deploying AI-enabled investigative analytics, strengthen capacity to investigate virtual assets, cryptocurrency, and emerging financial crimes. As a commission, through the academy, we are undertaking capacity building to just conform with the emerging trends in the fight against corruption through capacity building. And also promote secure data sharing with partner institutions to support investigations. The expected outcome is enhanced transparency, reduced corruption vulnerabilities, and institutional accountability. The last slide is on partnerships and whole of society approach, where we are saying partnerships have a multiplication effect on impact. So we institutionalize strategic partnerships across government, civil society, regulatory bodies, professional bodies, media, academia, youth, citizens, private sector, and faith-based organization. And this will be key even as we undertake, as we implement a nationwide campaign on integrity. The next one is scale evidence-based strategic communication and social behavior change campaigns to cultivate a national culture of integrity. We also urge all of us to strengthen accessible, secure, and responsive citizen reporting and whistleblower mechanisms. We've been urging people to report, but the only way they'll report is when their security is ensured. The other one is mainstream integrity and ethics education across learning institutions. We continue to forge regional and international partnerships to advance knowledge exchange and also leverage digital platforms for sustained public engagement. The expected outcome is increased ownership of the anti-corruption agenda because everybody will have a role to play. Also stronger public oversight. And lastly, the collective action against corruption. My presentation ends there, but the 4 areas are key for us to scale integrity in this financial year and moving forward. Thank you.
Another round of applause for Joyce Munene. Thank you. We have been taken through the 2 presentations. We had planned to have a short plenary so that we can have 1 or 2 responses on the 2 presentations. Of important to note, CEO, we have been requested by the media that they want to do a very brief media interview at 1 o'clock. At 1 o'clock. That is in the next few minutes. Probably they want to carry it live. And therefore, I want to indicate that the short plenary we are going to have will run within the few minutes before 1 o'clock. So that 1 o'clock, we have another 2-3 minutes for the briefing before we end the day. Let me open the floor for any responses to the presentations done. It could be a comment, could be a question, it could be a suggestion on how best we can enhance integrity. So the floor is open. I have a team which will assist me to move the mic. If you want to speak, you just raise your hand. We will identify it and give you an opportunity. Usually in a meeting, it's always a challenge, particularly to get the first one. But after that, you struggle on who to give an opportunity. So I'm encouraging the first one. Who wants to make the first comment? All right. There is none. So we will not insist because nobody seems to volunteer themselves to ask any question. But the presentations done will be available to members of CLIF. We will have a mechanism of sharing them because some of them probably will need a more detailed follow-up. With that, before we get to the media briefing, allow me to propose to take 2-3 official photos. Then, as we prepare for the media briefing, I will ask my team to assist me, move the podium slightly. Then I will invite the chairperson, the CEO, the commissioners of EACC, and heads of institutions who are here to come forward and take the first official photo. I will enhance the group later, so don't worry so much in case we are not in the first category. But take care of the mics. We take it to the side because the photo will be taken around here. Yeah. This is for purposes of documenting this event and remembering it as we move into the future. For the 10th series of this commemoration, I will invite the chairperson to step forward. I will invite the commissioners of EACC. The CEO is joining you shortly. I will invite the heads of institutions. DIG, you are in that category. The Director Generals, CEOs, heads of UNODC, we can join in the first photograph. Just wait, the CEO is joining shortly. Yes. So the photo, the cameraman, you can arrange them the way you want as we give a minute to the CEO to join. Of course, CEO join and next to the yeah. Now that is the first official photo. Okay, you don't move, you just remain there, but you can move slightly forward. I want to invite representatives of institutions who are, they are representatives of institutions, including our youth leader, Linda. We can come forward and join the photo. Those who have been sent to represent different institutions, you can come and join in the photo. EACC directors, you can also come, and CLIF Secretariat, Joyce, you can also join. Directors, TOR, you can come. Yes? The cameramen are telling me they will put some seats here because they have realized the number is slightly bigger. Then we will have the team which took the first photo seated. We will have the heads of institutions seated. ESCC colleagues, you can help me to bring a few seats. Yeah. Please. Metosha. 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 Okay. We can. Oh. Yeah. Give it to CEO. Give it to DG. Yeah. Let me have the phone here back and the seats to be removed. Yeah. Kindly let me have the seats removed. The ESCC team, let us remove the seats. Let us remove the seats. Tusaidie. Irudishe nyuma. Okay, so are we okay with the okay? Yeah? Okay. I think they are okay. The transition will take time.
the offices where they serve and where they have been misusing public resources. One of the things that has also been of concern, and we are going to be looking at soon, is where there is so much cash in being used, particularly in various fields of public government. We find there's a lot of cash that is exchanging hands. And we are concerned, why should we have so much cash when at this time you can even buy roast maize using M-Pesa? Why is there so much cash that is circulating around? Because these people know that cash is difficult to trace, and therefore that's what they are using. And so we want to look into ways and means to ensure that the flow of cash, especially in such large amounts, is limited, so that we do not have people taking advantage of the use of cash which they can easily hide and is not traceable. So this is something that we are thinking about how to handle that situation. Yes. We are in the process of looking into that. As I said again, why so much cash is circulating around us. We would not want to say at this point what we are doing because we have not concluded our investigations in the same. But it is a matter that is of concern. Thank you very much. I'll also allow CEO to make some comments on the same. But where we are at, especially in, more specifically about elections, you know, this is a national event, as it were, which involves several agencies, several commissions that are involved. IEBC is right at the center of it. And so it requires a collaborative effort. It is not just an EACC work to ensure that these things don't happen. So we are actually in the process of coming together, the various agencies that are more directly related to matters of elections and bribery goes with it, so that we can strategize on how do we deal with this situation. In particular, the NCIC National Commission on, now I've forgotten the Integration Commission. We are looking at that because of the whole issue of hate speech and the language that is there that incites people towards violence. We are looking at IEBC that is charged with the responsibility of managing the election. And then, of course, us who are looking at the whole issue of ethics and integrity. How can we work together to ensure that some of these things do not happen? That is something that is we are working on. We are thinking how to go about it so that we can come together and put our efforts in ensuring that 2027 does not end us up where we were in 2007. So it is a great concern for those of us who are here, but it requires more than just EACC. It requires a collaboration, a collaborative effort across various commissions and agencies that are charged with different responsibilities. So we will look into it. Thank you.
Okay, I will not be personal. I will not refer to any person. That is your comment. But we all know we have the Leadership and Integrity Act. We also have Chapter 6 of the Constitution. There are parameters under which public officers and state officers are supposed to operate. And you will always notice, for example, when we come across public officers committing certain, certain misconduct which fall within the Leadership and Integrity Act, or you see us either summoning that person or cautioning or calling them to record statements. So we've done that. You've seen recently the County Assembly of Narok, where they had crackers in the assembly. We took action and summoned them, did our own investigations. So if, for example, there is a specific issue that any state officer commits which fall within either the Leadership and Integrity Act or the Constitution and the Chapter 6, you will see us coming. But because you didn't give us a specific area or issue which you had issues with, it will be difficult for us now to generalize the same. That is actually not in our, I mean, it has not come to our attention that there are certain state officers who are not supposed to be involved in politics, who are doing politics. If that issue comes to our attention, of course we will come in. We've issued advisories, even as recent as, I think, early this year, where we clearly directed that state officers are not supposed to take part in any political campaigns or to campaign for certain. That is what the Constitution expects of them. And we have indicated what action we are going to take if that comes to our attention. There are certain state officers, for example, like chief, the cabinet secretaries, or even the CECs at the county level, that have a leeway because they are appointees of the president, and they have been given the leeway to, that they could be involved in politics. But for the rest of the state officers and the public officers, we have given clear directive and advisory on what is expected of them when it comes to political influence. Okay, first let me deal with the issue of dishing out money, which we see on TV. First, let's remember that having money is not an offense. Because that is where the problem is. Giving out money to people is also not an offense. The issue is this money proceeds of crime? If it is proceeds of crime, of course, that is money that we are not supposed to have even in the first place. The issue of, again, people having money, you can't just go and question people, how do you get this money? How did you get this money? I mean, it looks, for you as a journalist, it looks rather straightforward. But when you look at the law, unless you are able to prove the source of this money, that it is tainted, it is process of crime, it is probably either to bribe people, to do certain illegal actions, you can't tell people, why do you have money? You can't ask another person, why are you giving this person money? Because that is his money or her money. Now, the issue would be if we have sufficient evidence to prove that these are processes of crime, or the money that these people are dishing out is intended for bribery. There we come in, and we come in force. But if an MP, for example, is giving out money to his constituents, we need to find out in law what exactly is the purpose of this money and what is the source of this money. I think that is a critical issue that we need to identify. And it doesn't just come automatically. It requires a bit of investigation. Please send me that video from KTN. I will analyze it. Send me, please.
Thank you very much. As far as UNODC is concerned, we have the mandate of supporting the member state of implementing convention and any resolution derived from the convention. I might say that through our financial crime based here in Nairobi, but covering Africa, we start already organizing a capacity building program to support countries to implement the political financing provision. So we just ran a number of activities, starting with a regional meeting we ran in South Africa, and then also here in Kenya, and we are aiming at extending this capacity building and political financing issue in the also a very important area. I guess the chair of ACC already shared how Kenya is dealing with the upcoming deal regarding the financing of campaign, but it's also part of the whole issue, how political parties are coming to this what we are doing.
Who's going to pray?
We have come to the end of our meeting. Attention, please. Attention, please. We started with a word of prayer. I want to invite Commissioner Dr. Cecilia